Assalamu alaikum students. Our today's topic is Paradise Lost, which is an epic written by John Milton. We are going to read a few lines in the second lecture, and in this lecture we are going through the introduction of the poem, the poet, and the history of epic itself. What is an epic? An epic poem is a lengthy narrative work of poetry. So, epic should be long and it should be written in the form of a story. These long poems typically detail extraordinary feats and adventures of the characters from a distant past. Poems are long and there are many adventures and extraordinary things that the characters do in it. Those characters are not modern, those characters are mostly from past. The word epic comes from the ancient Greek term that is epos, which means story, word, or poem. How did epics originate? How did the epics start? Epic poems trace back to some of the earliest human civilizations, both European and Asian. Take the Epic of Gilgamesh, considered by some scholars to be the oldest surviving examples of great literature. The poem is thought to have been written in approximately 2100 BC and traces back to ancient Mesopotamia. It tells of the ancient king Gilgamesh, a descendant from the gods who embarks on a journey to discover the secret of immortality. The Epic of Gilgamesh was written in Iraq, the modern day Iraq, the old times Mesopotamia. It is the oldest text ever found. And there are the other epics that you can see here. The Iliad and the Odyssey are by Homer. Then there is Beowulf, that is an old English epic. Further, you can see down there two epics from the Latin times. One of them is Aeneid by Virgil and the other is Divine Comedy by Dante. Up there are Fairy Queen and Shahnama. Fairy Queen is from England, written by Spenser, and Shahnama is written by Firdausi, that is from Afghanistan. So all these epics show how this tradition of epic writing has been prevalent in all the world. What are the characteristics of an epic poem? The meter of epic varies depending on cultural custom. Ancient Greek epics and Latin epics were typically composed in dactylic hexameter. Old German epics, including those of the Old English, typically contain non-rhyming alliterative verse. Later English language epics were written in Spenserian stanza and blank verse. An archetypical epic poem typically is written in a formal style. That means that epic has a certain style that it follows. It would not be depending on the whims of a poet or his will. Contains third person narration and omniscient narrator. That means that the narrator who is telling the story would be a third person. He would not be present in the poem and his voice should be completely recording everything with his own point of view. Frequently invokes a muse who provides inspiration and guidance to the poet. Invoking a muse means that there were 9 muses in Greek mythology, 9 goddesses who presided over arts and sciences. And whenever someone was writing something, he always called for or prayed to that goddess who was the goddess of that certain style of writing. Like there is a different goddess for epic writing and there is another goddess for astronomy in muses. Takes place in an era beyond the range of any living memory. Epics are mostly about the times that are prehistoric and there is no history that is found written about those events. Typically includes a journey across a variety of settings and terrains. In epics, there is always a journey. The hero goes on a journey, he crosses many places, he goes through many adventures. There are many backgrounds and settings, many cities, countries, seaside, land, mountains that are seen behind the hero in an epic. Features a hero with immense bravery and resolve. The epic hero has some superhuman qualities. He should be an extraordinary brave person, someone who is praised by all the world, and the people around him, someone who has no moral flaw. There can be something in a hero that makes him weak at one spot, but overall he should be a very strong person. Includes obstacles and circumstances that are otherworldly, even supernatural, pitting the hero against nearly insurmountable odds. Hero should face many difficulties, very adverse circumstances. He should face many problems, such problems that are impossible for a normal human being to encounter and live. But the hero of the epic is superhuman, larger than life, so he needs to conquer all the obstacles and be victorious. Looks with concern to the future of a civilization or culture. Epic is something written on a grand scale. So it is not only about one person or one family or one hero. Mostly it is showing a civilization or a culture that is at stake, and hero has to save his culture or civilization. This is the overview of the poem that we are going to see through. Author is John Milton. The year of publication is 1667. Type is in the epic poem. Genre is allegory. Perspective and narrator is John Milton himself. Paradise Lost is told by a third person, a person who is omniscient narrator. That means that all control is in the hand of that narrator, and he would not let any other point of view enter the poem. That narrator is Milton himself. He refers to himself by saying that these eyes that roll in vain to find that piercing ray, by saying that the person who is writing the poem is deficient in the eyes, or he is visually impaired. So this reference confirms that the narrator is Milton himself, no one else, and he would be writing the poem from his point of view. Tense. Paradise Lost is told in the present tense. All of the poem is in the present tense. About the title, Paradise Lost refers to the expulsion of the first humans, Adam and Eve, from the Garden of Eden after they commit sin by eating from the forbidden tree of knowledge. This phenomena is mentioned in the Bible and in Quran Kareem as well, that how Adam and Eve, Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Hawa, were expelled from the Garden of Eden because they had tasted the fruit that was forbidden to them. Now, according to Bible, that fruit is an apple, and Quran mentions no name here, so we don't know what the fruit is. There was a general tradition in Jews that the fruit was wheat. So this fruit that has been eaten, because of that both of them are turned to earth, and they have to live on earth down there. And because this happened because of Satan, who was one of the archangels, and he disobeyed God and he was punished for it. So the story of Milton starts with Satan. Greek epics involved heroes, wars, heroic acts. They usually begin with the writer invoking a muse as his guide. By invoking a muse that inspired Moses, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, Milton places Paradise Lost in the same epic category as the religious text and signals that he is writing an epic in the tradition of the ancient Greeks. So as it is very important to invoke a muse, a god or goddess in the start of the writing of an epic. Milton, being a Christian, would not like to invoke a Greek god or goddess. So he he actually invokes a muse that has inspired Moses, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. By that he means that Musa alayhi salam, when he saw the light of God, he was inspired by something, a power that Milton is using as muse here. Milton echoes and mimics earlier Greek epics in a few ways. His lengthy introduction and naming of all of the fallen angels in hell resembles an epic catalogue, a long list of soldiers found in epics like Iliad and Odyssey. When Milton starts the epic, he shows the army of Satan. Satan himself, then Beelzebub, then other characters like Lucifer. One by one they are shown and their characteristics are discussed, just like Homer discusses the heroes when Iliad starts, that which hero has which quality and what are the things that they have done in the past, the great adventures. In the same way, Milton is discussing Satan's army like Greek heroes. So he is following the tradition of the Greeks. Further, Milton portrays Satan as a military leader who assembles and commands his troops of fallen angels. This is similar to ancient Greek epics that glorified war heroes and serves to paint Satan as a kind of idealized protagonist. Satan is considered one of the heroes that Milton shows. In old epics, we see that the military commander of the epic, who is also the hero of the story, he would never lay down arms, he would always stay brave and keep fighting till the end. In the same way, Satan here is a character who is a military leader. He assembles his armies, he makes them stand up after such a fall, and he asks them to keep fighting whatever happens. So, this is also written in the Greek tradition. But rather than tell the tales of heroic men, Milton is dealing with issues of heaven and hell, God and Satan, fall of man. He also draws a distinct parallel between Satan's rebellion against God and man's disobedience to God. Milton has not chosen any people for his heroes or his villains in the start, because there is God, there is Satan, who are characters larger than life and are not human. Human characters are only Adam and Eve. In this way, his epic is different from the Greeks. By beginning Paradise Lost with a focus on Satan, Milton sets him up as the possible protagonist of the book rather than the antagonist. Though Satan realizes he has been defeated in his battle against God, his sense of pride doesn't allow him to ask God for forgiveness and re-entrance into heaven. Milton in his story shows that how Satan is a possible hero. He is not a villain. Satan has seen that he has been defeated by God, but he is so proud that he would not ask forgiveness. He would not like to enter heaven again by being humble to God. Here Milton hints at the idea that even though Satan thinks he has control of his own life and decisions, God is always one step ahead of his creations. Milton hints that God is obviously has more to do and more to know than Satan. God is someone who is stronger and he always knows where to play his game and how to handle Satan and human beings at the same time. Milton never makes clear if he wants his audience to empathize with Satan, but making him the hero of the epic would have been a risky decision in Milton's Christian era. Milton's audience would have been more likely to understand the complete power God had over Satan, that his battle was doomed to be futile. Contemporary audience are more likely to see Satan as the sympathetic underdog of the story and see God as rigid and unfeeling. Milton could not clearly say that Satan is his hero because he was writing in an era that was very rigid in the beliefs of the Christianity. So Milton has only hinted at the heroship of Satan. He has not clearly pointed out that he is the hero of the epic. But the way he treats him is closer to the hero of Greek epics. That is why the modern reader can feel more acutely that Milton sympathizes with the plight of Satan and actually thinks that he is a hero. Who are the characters that we see in this epic? Some of the characters are mentioned. Satan, he is the ruler of hell who wages a war against God and heaven. God is the ruler of heaven and universe, all seeing and all knowing. The Son may be equal to God. Here Son means the Son of Christianity, that means Hazrat Isa alayhi salam or Jesus Christ. And he takes form to carry out God's plans. Adam is the first human created by God. Eva, the first woman, is born from Adam's rib. Abdil is a rebel angel, that means one of the party of Satan, who returns to God to repent. He goes back and he asks forgiveness. Beelzebub is second in command of Satan's army. Beelzebub was actually the name of a god the people worshipped in Mesopotamia or Iraq. Milton has chosen the names of Satan's army from all the idols that were worshipped all around the world. Belial is also one of them. He is a devil on Satan's council in hell, and he advocates for doing nothing. Idea of Belial is that they should not fight God. Chaos. Chaos is the personified material out of which God created the universe. In Bible it is written that before there was nothing, there was chaos. And from chaos, the material, God created heaven and earth. Death. Death is the son of sin and Satan. Death is also present in the poem as a very strong force. Gabriel or Hazrat Jibrail salam is the second in command of God's army and guarding of the staircase to heaven from earth. These are some of the main characters mentioned here. Themes of Paradise Lost are obedience and disobedience. In this story, we see that the characters are of two types. One type is who are obedient to God and other are disobedient to God. And this is the main factor in the story. In the same way, they will get their punishments and their rewards. Satan is the most disobedient person there, and we see that Adam and Eve, as soon as they see that they have committed a sin, they ask forgiveness. That is how they are saved from the fate of Satan. Sin and innocence. Milton shows innocence in great detail. That Adam and Eve, when they are born, they live in the paradise, they are very innocent of sin. They don't know sin. And as soon as they eat the fruit, they lose their innocence. Now they have lost it once, they cannot be ever innocent again. Fate and free will is another thing, that is a theme. Paradise Lost presents a very puzzling conundrum. If God has knowledge of everything that has happened, will ever happen, also possesses the power to change anything, do his creatures really have free will? Milton tries to make the case that God is careful not to influence his creatures, but to leave their individual choices to them even when he can see the outcome. So Milton in this way justifies the ways of God to men. He says that God knows what will happen next, but still he gives free will to his creatures. He gives them the power to act as they want to do, so they have to reap the benefit or the downside of whatever they have done. Their actions will actually bring what happens next. This lecture is to be continued. In the next lecture, we will read an extract from the poem and know what Milton has written in Paradise Lost.